Ready. I'm going to call this meeting of the Plan Commission to order. Could I have a roll call?
Yes. Andrew Fell,
Here.
Tyler Fitch,
Here.
Bernadine Stake,
Here.
Marilyn Upabant,
Here.
Carrie Hawkins, Ash, Lou Hopkins, Danny Otto.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
No.
Approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes, June 6th and June 20th. June 20th was essentially a meeting to initiate this case that we're going to hear tonight in order to comply with public notice requirements.
I'll move them.
Moved by Ms. Upabant,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Fell. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? The meeting's passed. The minutes pass. The minutes pass. How about that? Now, if there's no communications, and we don't have anything before us, I will reopen Plan Case 22M13, a request by Howard Wakeland to rezone 906, 908, 910 West Church Street and 701 North Lincoln Avenue from R2 Single Family to B2 Neighborhood Business Arterial. So, Mr. Wakeland, anytime you're ready.
So I'll give the staff presentation.
Staff report, I'm sorry.
Everything's a little different in this room. So this is, as was just mentioned, a request by Howard Wakeland to rezone 4 properties from B2 Neighborhood Business Arterial, from R2 Single Family Residential to B2 Neighborhood Business Arterial zoning. So the properties are located on West Church Street, so just west of North Lincoln Avenue. The addresses are 906, 908, and 910 West Church, and 701 North Lincoln Avenue. 701 North Lincoln Avenue does have a single-family residence on it, and the other 3 lots are currently vacant lots. So we do have several related plan cases. The applicant in June 2012 submitted an application to rezone these properties along with other properties comprising the whole block from R2 to B3U, General Business University. That application was withdrawn before City Council. Then in November 2012, the applicant submitted a revised application for the whole block from R2 to B2. And that was defeated at the City Council. Then in February of this year, the applicant submitted a revised application that did not include certain parcels that were not owned by the petitioner in that block and the properties between them. And that was from R2 Single Family Residential to B2's Neighborhood Business Arterial. And that application also was withdrawn following the Plan Commission hearing. So now he has revised his application to a smaller district that is just the one property on Lincoln Avenue, and then the properties directly to the west of that, which are adjacent to the water treatment, the Illinois water treatment plant, which is in an industrial zoning district, the light industrial, if you will, IN1. So the property in the memo, you do have a chart that shows the zoning, the existing land use, and the future land use in the comprehensive plan. I won't go through all of the details because I think you've heard this case a few times this year and last year. If you do have any questions, please just let me know. But I'll just highlight what the differences are from the staff perspective for this application to the previous applications. This application, it's a smaller district, so it is cohesive. The advantages or the ways in which this application, this revised application, is better than the previous applications is that it includes the 3 properties that are currently vacant and probably don't have a viable use under the current zoning district. They are zoned for single-family residential, which is low-density single-family. They are vacant. They are adjacent to industrial. They are not really adjacent to a neighborhood, a single-family residential neighborhood, and so they probably are not viable as single-family residential housing. And it's those 3 properties and then the 1 property that kind of links them to Lincoln Avenue, which is the arterial. So I think that can be considered a benefit. It was pointed out by one of the commissioners at one of the last applications that those 3 properties are really not viable with the current zoning district, the R2. So negatives, at some point in the future, probably it would be advantageous for the entire block to be rezoned at a time when it's ripe for development and when there isn't when the owner owns the entire block without the 2 missing properties, and so this may prevent a larger development or a more cohesive development on the entire larger block between Hill and Church, because half of it will now be rezoned and presumably something will be built on it, and that might prevent a future larger development. So there is some staff analysis in the based on the LaSalle criteria in your memo on pages 6, 7, and 8. And the options for you this evening are to forward the case with a recommendation for approval of the rezoning request as presented, to forward it with a recommendation for approval of a portion of, but not all of the area, or to forward with a recommendation for denial of the rezoning request. The staff recommendation, which is based on evidence presented in the discussion above, but without the benefit of considering additional evidence that may be presented tonight at the public hearing, would be to forward Plan Case 2210M13 to the City Council with a recommendation for approval of B2 Neighborhood Business Arterial, and including the recommended findings. And I went over that very quickly. If you have any questions, please let me know, and we can go back over any parts of it that you would like.
I do have one question in regard to the use, talking about the office. I think I remember this from the original request about 5 years ago, that the shop, the maintenance building is ancillary to the office, and so the use case that allows it to be in B2 is the professional business office. Is that correct?
I will just look at my lovely trusty zoning ordinance. So a professional office is allowed by right in the B2, but I believe that so it would allow, anything that is allowed by right in the B2 district would be allowed by right under this zoning, and the office is allowed. We haven't actually discussed, because we haven't seen an actual proposal, we haven't discussed whether what he is exactly proposing is how it would fit under our zoning. But I think you're right. I recall that too from the original discussion years ago.
Will that come back to us as a site
If it
plan or
required a
something?
special use permit, then it would. If it is something that is
By right,
allowed
if
by
it's-
right,
yeah.
then it would not. Yeah.
Okay.
It would just have to meet the development regulations.
Sure,
And
and-
there are specific regulations for buffering between the single-family residential and a B2. There are additional buffering requirements that they would have to meet that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
I guess I have a question.
Mr. Bell?
Is buffering still required between the lots in question in 705, if he owns that lot and it's vacant, he has to do a residential buffer if it's still zoned, just because it's zoned residential? If it's
Yes,
vacant, does that
it's
matter?
use or zoning,
Okay.
yeah.
So, following up on that, so then the buffering requirement would apply to the rear of those 3 lots and then the side of the lot on Lincoln?
The rear, so it would have to, the 703 North Lincoln, which is the property adjacent to the properties but not owned by the petitioner, would, the side yard and the rear yard of that lot would have to be,
Okay.
have those additional buffering requirements.
Okay. All right. Nothing further, Mr. Whiteland?
You know, when I come, pardon me, so first of all, I want to thank all of you for coming. I know that this is a special meeting and that you've done it to try to speed up things for me. And I appreciate that very much, okay? I'm sorry to hear that Mr. Pollock has apparently decided he wanted to retire from the committee because I think he was a great leader. You also know that the last time when it was pretty obvious that we were not going to be able to win approval by the council for the proposal we had. And nobody wants to go before council simply so they can get knocked down again. We've been knocked down so many times that we really are wondering about staying in Urbana, very seriously. I show you this picture here. Why do I show you that picture? That was proposed for the block right next to Beckman Center, Beckman Laboratory. Oh boy, 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was. We finally sold that block to the university. You know why? We could not get zoning. We had single-family zoning there. And we could never get it turned around, and so this died in the process because we couldn't get zoning. And at that point, I don't know that I'm any wiser now, but we were not wise enough to pursue it perhaps the way we should. But we were so discouraged by that I just simply sold the block to the University of Illinois. Life was a lot easier, okay? That's the history of the section between Lincoln Avenue and the campus. That things have been given to the campus on a sale because we could not get zoning. We could not go ahead. We could not do the next thing. About 15 years ago, we had a very sharp young lady, April Getches, who worked for the city of Urbana. And at that time, we had gone through a period where the city decided they wanted to downzone all of the west side of Urbana to single-family housing. We got caught in that thing with a number of properties. We lost money on all of those that were downzoned. Since that time, there's been very little building on the west side, with the exception of what April Getches visualized at the time. She said, we've got to have a place where contractors can do something in the city of Urbana. And she fought for a new kind of zoning, namely B3U. And the one zone that she was able to get that established in was from Springfield to University Avenue, from Lincoln to Harvey. And we have since played in that playpen for the last 15, 20 years. It was good zoning. It encouraged us to go ahead. We could figure on the city moving ahead with that plan because they had passed it. They had already pre-zoned it. So that if you bought in there, the zoning was already set before you went in there. We've now built 15 apartment buildings in that area. And April had a vision of what needed to be done to try to bring builders, business people to Urbana. I don't know I've lost track of her. Last I heard, she was in Colorado or something. But she was a wise young woman. Why do I give all of this to you now? Because this thing that trying to get some zoning over there on this little piece of property, which all of it put together is about 2 acres, and we're only asking, you know, we asked for the whole thing, then we asked for part of it, and when we could see that we were going to get defeated in city council, we said, let's forget it, and we walked away. The last time we went to city council with a 5-0 vote, I think it was, in favor of us getting zoning, actually for the, as I recall, for the entire 2-acre plot. We had heard ahead of time that there had been talk about having a coalition against us to defeat that zoning. That coalition was there and it defeated us. Since then, if we can't see that we're going to win the city council, we won't go. Now that means that we're here again asking for some zoning, far less than we've ever asked before, hoping to get 4 lots free so that we can do something. I try not to talk about our successes, but we are now, as I understand it, the foremost single property owner in Urbana paying taxes. Our property taxes now are 2/3 of what Carl would have paid if you get them to pay the entire amount. We're paying 2/3 of that amount now. We've never griped. We've never made much noise about it. We just do it, pay it, and try to obey the law as we know how to handle it. So here we are asking for zoning on 4, may I say, miserable lots. Because we haven't done anything on them, primarily because we couldn't do anything to upgrade it. Some of you may or may not be aware, but the area between Hill, Church, Lincoln, and that side of the was the probably, when we first went in there, that was the drug center for Urbana. We went in there and we cleaned it up. We knocked down a pot house and got rid of it. We have cleaned up that area. If you want to go to the university tenants union, you will find out we are one of the 3 best housing units on campus in terms of cleanliness, accurate leasing, care of students, etc. And so, I'm not here begging, but if we don't get zoning this time, we are going to start plans to move out of Urbana. Now, as you are aware, in 2007, they finally came out with the future plans for zoning of the city of Urbana. I sometimes believe that this committee is the only one that really understands that, because city council sure doesn't. And when we went to city council last time, we got a 7-0 defeat, which means not one of them had been aware or willing to rule by the direction that that planning plan of the zoning plan had recommended. Not one of them. That is decimating to somebody who's in business and trying to do something different. So I come tonight with a far reduced request than anything we've ever had in the past. We started with 12 properties. I guess it was 11 properties, I'm sorry. 2 were owned by other people, which that's life. That's not a problem. And nobody's trying to run over them. We have never tried to run over them, although they will squeal like they have been trying to be run over. The 2 properties which are apparently again opposing, I don't know now where they stand, were offered, in my opinion, twice what the value of their properties were, and they both turned it down. So that's their choice. We're in America. If you don't want to sell your property, you don't have to, for heaven's sakes. So I had no problem with the decisions that they made, but that's where we are right now. We are asking for a B2, which I think is fair, absolutely fair, because it's on one side you have the water company with an industrial zoning, and across the street on the other side, I believe, Rebecca, I could be wrong, but I think it's a B1 to the north, I believe.
Further north.
And then that goes clear up to the park. Now, you should know that we were involved with a property transaction which had never, ever been aired before. But we essentially gave the lot to the south of the park, to the park, through a trade that we arranged with the city on some other property. But we made it impossible for that park to be extended to the south, to the boundary they were seeking. We made that possible for the park system, and I don't think even the director of the park system now is fully aware of that. Across the street, we have Carl. If Carl were asking for this zoning, this meeting would have been over with already. And you know that. They plan to go to the north. In the area that we have gone in there, we have cleaned every one of those houses up that we own. And you can go in and the bathrooms work, the faucets work, and the heating systems work, and the electrical systems work, all up to snuff. So we have been responsible, good landowners. I know we're not supposed to tell you what we want to do on the land, but we have never ever given any thought to building more than 1 or 2 story units in that area. Down in the B3 area, we haven't built 10 and 12 story buildings, even though we could have. There's a question of economics, and when you're in business, you have to make a profit or you're out of business. We are trying to clear up, most of you are aware, we own 3 acres of property on the southeast corner of University and Lincoln. And we are losing the flower shop, not because of our choice, not because of any threats, but the lady who owns it, she's a grandmother now, and she wants to spend more time with her grandchildren. And my understanding is, what I've been told, is that she's going to move that back to her house and try to run it from her house. Good luck, because she had a lot of equipment in there. She had a lot going for her there. But we're going to lose her, and we're sorry about that, because they were excellent renters from us. Okay, so we want to move some of our buildings and some of our activities from that quadrant on the southeast corner of University and Lincoln up to this area that we're seeking zoning on now. And trying to lighten the load on the owners up in that area, we're only asking for it on 4 lots. I really haven't talked much about what the law says, what the zoning ordinance says, and that sort of discussion. But I have told you very honestly and sincerely and straightforwardly that we have to be able to make some progress, or we're going to have to look in another direction. I would be pleased to answer any question you might have, and I know my presentation is a little unordinary, but I am sharing with you about 30 years of experience in Urbana and dealing with the West Side. End of statement.
Thank you, Mr. Wakeland. Do we have any questions? Nope. Thank you, sir.
Okay?
Would anyone else care to address the Planning Commission on this case? If you could sign the sheet there, and then this one right here at the front table, and state your name.
My name is Carol Ammons. I'm the alderperson for District 3, Ward 3, which is where this is situated at. I just have a couple of questions that I need to put forward.
Sure.
I'm not sure the process. This is my first time coming to the Planning Commission here at the City of Urbana. I heard the testimony of Mr. Wakeland. I understand that this meeting was moved up. This is a special meeting, and I'm trying to understand why this was called a special meeting as opposed to a regular scheduled meeting.
The regular scheduled meeting was originally going to be on Thursday, June 20th.
Okay.
We did not have a quorum.
All right.
We have 2 vacancies, and it's the summer, and we didn't have a quorum. But in
Okay.
order to satisfy public notice requirements, we held a meeting without a quorum in which we're allowed to open the case, which we did.
Okay.
And we scheduled it as near to that as we could so that we would, again, comply with public notice, and scheduled it today. Our next regularly scheduled meeting would have fallen on July 4th. So had we not, and that would have been canceled, so then we would have been looking at July, 18th or, somewhere along there.
So I have a little sketchy history of this because my time on the county board, I, of course, always lived there in that area, and so I was slightly familiar with the case and what the original application was. So 2 things. I understand your point, Mr. Wakeland, of going before body and not making progress. I would ask the Planning Commission at this point, because I'm the new council member in the area, and this is my first time being able to actually focus on this issue. I only got it, of course, because Rebecca sent it to me so that I could know about this meeting. So I don't have enough background or history or documentation of the changes of the application over the last several years. I would ask the commission, as opposed to sending it to the council without at least me having an opportunity to review it and speak to some of the other parties on this issue, if the commission would continue it to their next meeting so that I would have a week to do that. And I don't know how that impacts time plan. I don't know what the time is and why the time that we currently have is on the table. But that would be my request, because I have not spoken to any of the residents. I haven't spoken to Mr. Wakeland, and I haven't spoken to the other council members because they have a longer historical value on this than I do. It would be in all of our best interests for us to do that. I received an email from a couple of members asking me for direction on it. I hate to use the previous history to say, oh no, all I remember is the neighbors didn't want this. I would like to go back and really look at the smaller version that's being requested now, so that I can give at least an informed recommendation as I talk to the council members on this issue.
When is,
I have a question, issue.
okay,
we've heard this case enough that I have no idea how they're gonna vote. I know how I'm gonna vote. I don't think we need to continue it. I think I don't wanna speak for them. I think we're ready to vote on it. If you need more time, why don't you ask the city council to continue it when it gets to them?
I mean, certainly we could. The council can. The council can vote against it. The council can do whatever it wants. I was hoping to work with this commission in order to get a positive outcome. But this commission can do whatever it wants. Certainly the council can do what it needs to do according to our rules. But that was just my recommendation for this moment, so that I'll have time to talk to Mr. Wakeland and some of the neighbors before we actually did that. But that's just my request.
Bert,
I do think,
mistake.
that there weren't hardly any people notified about this. And that is not fair. I don't think that.
I mean, I just
that we
got
would-
it this
I
week.
think we should have waited until we had a quorum in our usual time, rather than choosing a new time when we can't get that information out to all the people who would maybe want to say something about this. So I would be with you in saying that I think we should not be carrying it through with just these few people here who have come. And I know that there are many people who were very concerned about it the last time. So it doesn't, and they probably would want to be here this time, so.
We can discuss that more if needed during our discussion, I think. If we take action tonight, when would this come before the council?
Not next Monday, but the following Monday. It's a standard practice.
So,
I could address, if you like, the noticing that we did. So we received the application and it was scheduled to go to the June 20th meeting. So as normal, we notified everyone that it was going to a June
Who's
20th.
everyone?
Everyone, so it is all property owners and residents within 300 feet of the property. And then it also goes to the city council, the plan commission gets it at that point. This is, I'm talking about the legal ad, when we send the legal ad out.
the newspaper.
Right, and the newspaper, and then there is a sign posted on the property. So we did all of that as normal, and it was just a few days before the meeting, or maybe even the week before the meeting, that we discovered we would not have a quorum. So at that point, the meeting is already advertised, and then Robert Myers, the planning manager, and Tyler Fitch were at the meeting, and anyone who came to the meeting, they said this is being rescheduled to the July 2nd, and it'll be held here in this building on July 2nd upstairs. So people were notified of the meeting, and anyone who came to that July 2nd or who phoned about, or I'm sorry, June 20th, or phoned about it, was told that it would be tonight. So, and if we
Okay.
did if we did hold it over, we would not be noticing again. So someone else can get the word out in the neighborhood, but we have done the noticing for the meeting.
Right, right. The thing is, it's the summer, and there are a lot of people who are gone, and a lot of people who would be interested in doing in this particular issue, because you know how important it was to people when we had it before. So it would seem that we would try to make it so that people who would like to come, could, and would have the time and everything to see it. So
I would,
it seems like this makes it pretty unfair in some ways.
so I would understand, of course, that for the previous council member who may have done this 4 more times before me, that would make sense. For me, I haven't even learned all the things of the council yet, less known all of the commissions and committees. So I would ask for that consideration. But beyond that, I would like to speak to Mr. Wakeman, and I would like to specifically know what his plans are, because I'm interested in that, and that's going to impact my decision when it comes to the council, as well as the neighbors. I can't say currently that I have a major issue, but I don't know that yet because I haven't studied the issue deep enough to know that. I can defer, I can move it at the council level if the commission wants to vote in however they like tonight. I have a couple of concerns, but I don't have the answers to them yet.
All right. Anything further? Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the commission on this case? We know you very well, but if you would please sign the,
You've seen me before. My name is Susan Taylor. I live at 606 West Michigan Avenue in Urbana. And I've been watching the Plan Commission for, 10 years?
Probably.
Anyway, it includes the last several times that we've looked at Dean Wakeland's interest in the area. And I guess I need to write my address before I say more here. Okay, so I'm inscribed now. I speak also with a passion for Urbana, which I share with Dean Wakeland. But from a different point of view, I'm not a businesswoman. I'm a university retiree, 37 years on the campus as a faculty member. And Dean Wakeland was one of my colleagues as we worked together with students from overseas. So I've known him in that context, but I hadn't known him in this context until I've come to these meetings most recently. And as a business person, I can understand the interest in that corner of Lincoln and University Avenue. As a resident myself, I'm a very quiet street, Michigan Avenue, a corner of Orchard, relatively quiet, except when there are detours. And as a very fortunate person to be in a neighborhood that is only fighting a church, but we've had some heavy duty there because it really isn't a place for lots and lots of traffic and lots of parking. It wasn't conceived that way. And West Urbana is very proud of itself as being a residential neighborhood. I guess I don't know, Dean Wakeland, where you live, but I think you and your family have also been privileged to live in neighborhoods that haven't had commerce or churches, perhaps, on your cul-de-sac or wherever you are. I'm not on a cul-de-sac, but some of us are, and we feel pretty fortunate, I guess, in our parks and things. So for me, Urbana is a neighborhood, which I guess is where I take issue with the business end of it. University Avenue certainly has given in to hospitals and to traffic and to ambulances and to things that have made it less easy to live there. But I see what's north of University and Lincoln on that corner as a neighborhood. And I see two people, and I was one of the two people here last week on the 20th who didn't happen to be notified because we're not official people. But one resident was here and I was here. And she happens to work kind of a 90-hour-a-week work that does not include being off on Tuesday nights. She's off on Thursdays. So in a way, I'm representing her as best I can because she couldn't be here tonight. But she is not interested in selling the family house that she's been in for 3 generations. She sees that area as her neighborhood because it has been her neighborhood for 3 generations.
for the record, Ms. Taylor, would you state the name of the person?
It's
Viola
Bias,
Bias, I believe?
Viola.
Yeah, lives in
Yes.
the neighborhood.
And
And she's testified before
Right,
at this body and at the council.
right, thank you, Tyler, because
Yeah, that's,
Thanks very much. So she was here, and she really feels very strongly that the value of her property is not sale, but it's home. And she knows the other owner. Most of the folks there in that corner are renters. But it's a neighborhood that, from my point of view, is being attacked by Carl. Carl is expanding and expanding and expanding, and maybe they're all going to go under. But I think that side of Lincoln Avenue still does have the northern, and again, I should know which street is which, because I've been there. I was there last week. I took another look last week. I thought I might go today, but I see that the property of 910 and 908 and 906 had a bulldozer on it last week, and they were clearing some of the kind of leveling things and making it look like a lovely place for a couple of new houses, Mr. Wakeland. Nice little houses, not apartments, just a couple more houses. If you, I don't know, I guess you can't make money on nice little houses, but gee, to me, it's a very special area because of the special people who are living there. And I don't think most of the renters are aware of what's going on. The owners may be in town or may not be in town. And so I think the renters aren't aware of, well, maybe they are aware, but maybe they're more transient and don't speak up. I don't know. But anyway, I speak as a neighbor and a concerned neighbor. So.
any questions, Ms. Daly? No?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else care to address the Plan Commission on this case? No? Okay, then, Mr. Wakeland, do you have anything further?
No, I think it's probably better just leave it alone. We either go or we don't go.
Okay, thanks, Jim. All right, I'll close the public commentary portion of this, and we'll discuss it. Anybody have a thought, starting with Mr. Bell?
Can I ask Mr. Wakeland a question? Are we allowed? Do you
Sure.
care? What's your opinion if we continue this case?
What is
You
that
said,
one now?
what's your opinion about continuing the case?
About
Do you have an
continuing.
objection if we continue the case to the next Plan Commission meeting?
Oh, you mean if take more time, you mean?
Correct.
Right.
We've been on this case for how long? 3 years or something like that? A long time. I've gotten to know you people very well, you know. I almost feel like I'm a member of the committee, but be that as it may, the answer is, yeah, you can always wait. But I'm 86 years old now. I may not be here for the next meeting. Now, my kids are all here, and they're going to take care of it, okay?
Yeah.
So it's not a life or death matter, I pray. But bottom line is, we've messed around with this thing, and we've messed around with this thing. I've tried to try to soften our request so that the two people who own properties up there don't feel threatened, don't have any reason to sell their house unless they particularly want to. And that has been what my stand from the very beginning that we went into that territory to begin with. We have never threatened them. We have never pushed them. In fact, with one of them, a lawyer appointment had been made because they were ready to sell. And I went to the lawyer's office, and at that point, the other person did not show up. So there's been a lot of confusion on this thing between me and them, and between them and the city. And I don't think that the real facts have often come out. But we have never, ever threatened them. Never will. And we've tried to treat them as very first-class citizens. Time, if you really feel you need it, take it. But I don't know, Rebecca. I think you've done a marvelous job with all of the stuff you've been playing with. You know, not playing, but working with. Okay. So, I'm not gonna push again. If you need for me to back off, I will back off again. Although, how many times do we back off? This is probably about the 5th time that we would have backed off if we back off again, so. I will let you at your leisure, okay?
Thank you, sir. Well, let's take a straw poll on the issue of continuance, I guess.
Is that what you mean, that we would
There's-
continue this?
Just a show of hands, I mean, if we're gonna,
So we can invite more people, is that
It-
what you're saying?
sure, yeah,
Okay.
let's,
Rebecca, when is our next meeting?
On the 18th, July 18th.
Let's be clear, though, she already said she's not gonna renotice.
correct. Yeah, there's no renoticing,
So-
it's been, that's the reason that we had the meeting at the regularly
Right.
scheduled time, was so that we could keep the notice in place.
Why are you saying that you wouldn't renotice?
Because we've already noticed the case
Well,
and
yeah,
it's
but-
just being
but-
continued.
Okay, but now we're saying here, we're changing our mind.
Well, the notice of the
Possibly.
meeting will the notice of our meeting will still appear as it normally would on the website and anywhere else.
It's still on the agenda, but it's not, so the legal ad that goes in the newspaper, the petitioner has to pay for that, so we can't ask him to pay for another ad.
Oh, I see,
Right, so we
okay.
could
Okay.
put a new sign on the properties. We could do that, so anyone walking by the properties would see it and would see the new date on it.
Mhm.
Is the
And
sign
then-
still up? I did go by there.
The sign is
Sign
up.
is still up.
Yeah, but it does have the old date on it.
Well, that would probably be a good idea, if that's the way we go.
Okay.
Well, let's just do a show of hands. Who wants to continue this to July 18th?
I do.
I don't want to, but I
No,
will.
you do.
You don't want to, but you will?
I have no need to continue it. I mean, it's- in my opinion.
Okay, Solomon,
Hot seat.
I get to, let's continue it.
Okay.
And I'm prepared to vote on it. I agree with you. We've heard this many, many times.
Yeah, I know.
But out of deference to Ms. Ammons, which it's unusual for a city council member to come here and ask us to continue a meeting, but as you learn the protocols and we get used to each other, then I think that 2 weeks is
Reasonable.
Is reasonable.
Well, and we have said over and over and over and over that we need single-family residential.
Well, if we're gonna continue this, then I don't think we need to go into a deep discussion tonight.
Okay.
If the purpose of continuing it, one of the reasons is to allow more plan commissioners to be here and express their opinions, and now,
We need to wait till.
I don't know I don't know that there's any guarantee that that happens. But maybe if the city could, twist some arms and try to keep us in line, maybe we can get a full 7 or 6, would be great.
7.
Is it possible to have new appointees by then, or not?
It's unlikely, but it is possible if we had an applicant soon. There would only be the one city council meeting between now and then, so.
Okay, well, in that case, we'll continue this hearing to July 18th,
Do you have to
Thursday,
really
July
do it?
18th.
It was like a straw poll, don't we?
Oh, do we have to actually make a motion, or can I just do that with my own
I don't know.
authority?
I'm not sure, so maybe.
Somebody
we do
move,
it.
somebody
I
move.
move.
Moved by Ms. Stagg,
I'll second it.
seconded by Ms. Zupan. Do we have a roll call?
Tyler Fitch,
Yes.
Andrew Fell,
Yes.
Bernadine Stake,
Yes.
Marilyn Upabant.
Yes.
That motion passes, and this will reopen this hearing on Thursday, July 18th. And we should be in our regular quarters
We'll have a regular quarter,
downstairs.
right?
Okay, thank you for your testimony. I'll move on with the remainder of the agenda now. We don't have any old business, we don't have any new public hearings, we don't have any new business. Audience participation. Anybody want to address the Plan Commission on Any other matter
Any other matter?
besides this case? No? Okay. Staff report?
Nothing that I'm aware of. There
We're
may
not-
be something, I just don't know.
There's something you're not telling us, I know. We don't have any study sessions, so we are adjourned.